who have vaccinated so far are 500,000. The end of the report about activities that went on in the Ghana group. Derry Anthony, reporting from Ghana. I am because we are. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Derry Anthony from Ghana.
Thank you.
I am because we are. Up next, we have Birant Kalumfa. Birant, can you hear me? Let's continue with Roland Kassam. Roland, can you hear me?
Hello?
Yes.
Hello?
Roland.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, brothers and sisters. Thank you being to share I love Black people 2021 period under review from March 27, 2021 under 2021 to 2nd April 2021. Highlight of key activity tasks and in the week. Exclusive movie screening and Zoom meeting was successful held. Augustine Mpande, a country group moderator, thank and appreciate member and ambassador to attend both exclusive movie screening and Zoom meeting. A confirmed link was kept on the platform to enable members and to enable members to confirm attendance on this Zoom meeting. In session now, a video giving definition of xenophobia and was kept to the platform. Moderator Augustine Mpande posted a message entitled "Where is that zeal?" to encourage member and ambassador to continue in the fight against racism and xenophobia. Those who are encouraged to recommend practice so that they became ambassadors. In the week, 2 leaderboards were posted indicating names of those who recommend business. Question of the day for chatting was traditional medicine or the use of herbs. COVID-19 update in Cameroon. Confirmed cases 57,337. Transmission 51,769. Active cases 4,719. Focus point 427. Admitted with 122. Recovered 19%. Number 1.4%. Severity number 2.5%. Bed occupancy 13.5. From Cameroon, here Ambassador Roland Gassan. Thank you very much. I am because we are.
All right, I am because we are. In the comment section, I can see that there are no questions, but if you have any question, you can send an email to info@iloveblackpeople.com. We can continue with Pan-African class, healthcare with Nana Akua. Can you hear me? Hello?
Hello?
Yes, welcome.
Good morning.
Yes, good morning.
All right, so we're ready. How's everyone doing? Everyone is fine.
Yes.
So in
yes.
keeping, yes, thank you. So in keeping with the syllabus, our topic for today is about nutrition. So I hope everyone has received either through email or through the WhatsApp platform, the handouts. I sent some extra handouts, just some additional flyers in addition to the packet that just gave some information on various vitamins and minerals. If everyone that's on can maybe send a message and confirm that you have seen those or you have access to the documents that we're teaching from today. Okay, well, okay. Yeah, I'll post it. Okay, well, if you're new and you don't have the materials, then I'll post them to the platform a little later. But today what we're going to talk about is nutrition, or at least what nutrients are. And if you do have the packet, great. If not, feel free to take notes. Some of this information you certainly may be familiar with, but I wanted to kind of explain it specifically so we really have a good understanding, because similar to what we discussed last week, where I mentioned certain foods that are used to heal the body. I think a lot of the foods or the types of foods that we'll mention, you will have access, even though some of the herbs or things like that that we've discussed are not necessarily available everywhere. But I'm talking from the handout here. If you can see, what are nutrients? Nutrients are substances found in food that provide nourishment to the body. So that's a basic definition. And there are basically 6 main types of nutrients. We have carbohydrates, we have fats, we have proteins, we have vitamins, minerals, and water. Okay. And I'll start with talking about carbohydrates. I think carbs get a bad rap, especially for those of us who try to, watch our weight, or we're concerned about over consuming carbs and the impact that it'll have on our bodies. However, carbohydrates is an essential nutrient. It is necessary for the body. It's just a matter of choosing the correct carbohydrates. There are simple and complex carbohydrates, and I've listed those here. Our simple carbohydrates are sugars. They digest faster. which mean that they tend to spike the blood sugar faster. So that can be, you know, a disadvantage. And these are your things like candies, cakes, sweets, even fruit. So this is typically how, or the source that most of us get our carbs. But more complex carbohydrates, which digest slower, are things like fiber and starches. So not our cakes and cookies and candies, but our root vegetables, pasta, beans, and things of that nature. And so these are usually going to be a better source of your carbohydrates. So you want, even though our pastas and things like that will break down into sugar, if it can take longer to do that and not go into the body as a simple sugar, you're going to do better. I'm not sure if we spoke earlier about the glycemic index, but I think this is a good place to talk about that, because in determining what are good carbs, that's probably the best way to determine is by using what we call the glycemic index. This probably would be a good day to have shared the screen, but I don't have my little handy flash drive. Right? So glycemic index is what we're talking about here, right? So if you see in the chat, I've listed that name in case you aren't hearing me well. But basically what you want is no food over 70. The glycemic index assigns a number to determine whether a food is a low, moderate, or high glycemic food. And the higher the glycemic food, the more quickly it increases our, raises our blood sugar. And so then the pancreas has to do more work to kind of add enough, why is the word escaping me? But it has to work harder to balance out your blood sugar, okay? And so the glycemic index is a good indication of which starches or which carbohydrates to consume in your diet. So we know that even fruits and vegetables are good for us. We know that there are some that are sweeter or higher starch or higher glycemic than others. So even in terms of choosing fruits and vegetables, we know that if we are being mindful of our pancreas health and we have blood sugar issues, we're going to avoid those fruits, for example, that are considered our sweet fruits, like mangoes or grapes, or even melons can be high glycemic fruits. You would want to go more in the way of your fiber-rich fruit like apples, pears, cherries, even your citrus fruits. These are going to be better options for having less sugar or less carbs in your system. And in terms of vegetables, we know that there are root vegetables that are also starchy or higher in glycemic or higher in your sugar content. So these are things like potatoes, carrots, beets. Even though they have healthful benefits, again, if you're being conscious of your, trying to get more light here. I need to buy one of those little lights because this room is not very bright. Next time it'll be better. But we know that these high starch vegetables, we also have to be mindful as to how much we consume. And these our yams and things like that we definitely like to eat in African cuisine. Again, these are those types of root vegetables that are high in starch. And so we want to be mindful about how, and this might be funny telling an African this, but I mean, I know that this is a main staple, right? And we eat plenty of rice and yams and things of that nature. However, if you have diabetes that runs in your family, if you're a little heavy around the middle, or if overall you have some excess weight, we really want to try to limit how much of these root vegetables and these types of carbohydrates that we consume. We want to add more vegetables. If you're a meat eater, then find meats and vegetables, not everything with a lot of starch. That's only going to raise your blood sugar. So little different culturally. It's going to be a challenge, but carbs are important, but the right carbs is what we want to focus on. Focus on maybe consuming, excuse me, more beans, and again, more green vegetables and that sort of thing, as opposed to a lot of the pastas and rices and yams or potatoes. And your pancreas will thank you. And even though, especially in this country, most people, a lot of people are diabetic, and they only think about their pancreas health in regards to diabetes. However, if you are aware of anybody who's had pancreatitis or pancreatic cancer or any other conditions involving the pancreas, it can be very deadly. It's a very, very serious issue to have with your pancreas. And it'll take you out. So we have to really be mindful about how we're treating our pancreas. And a lot of that has to do with the type of carbohydrates we put into our systems. Okay, so carbs are good, just has to be the right carbs. Moving on, let's talk a little bit about proteins. So of course, we know of proteins in regards to meats, but for people who, and of course, in choosing those meats, we want lean meats. We want meats that ideally we know how they were fed, how they were raised. That's always going to be, I think, an issue when you're talking about consuming animals, which is sort of where the concept of halal foods come in. It's all about how the animals are treated, what they're fed, how they're slaughtered. So you want the highest quality meat if you're going to consume meat. And then when consuming meat, you know, we want to make sure that it's not just fried. Meats will have its own fats and oils with it. If we are strictly preparing it in terms of adding more oils and fats, really not necessary, just adds more potential harm than the protein that you could get from the meat itself. So we're talking, and I'm not a proponent necessarily of vegetarianism. I have been vegetarian. I'm not currently. I mainly do seafood and vegetables. But even for a meat eater, not a fan of Mr. Pig, not even a fan of Mr. Cow. These meats are just a little harder to digest. The body has to do a lot of work to digest beef or pork. So poultry, you know, chicken, turkey, fish, if you're going to do flesh, I would say to lean more to those or make those the predominant meat source. But what our handout focuses on is vegetarian sources of protein, because of course that's always, I think, an argument for or against, I guess, a vegan or a vegetarian person is the question of how they obtain enough protein. So if you're following in the handout, there's a list of different protein powders. A lot of times people get into making smoothies or doing liquid meals and drinks, and they'll add these various protein powders. Some of which, though, have dairy, so not all protein powders are void of any meat or any animal products. But there are those options. So for someone that is not consuming flesh or meat, there are options of whey protein, there's options of casein protein, egg protein, pea protein, hemp protein, brown rice protein, and then they have mixed plant proteins. So there are options for people who are not consuming flesh as well to get protein. Even though we also know that there are other foods that will contain protein as well, which is how they make up, some of these protein powders. But protein, we know, is essential. But there's animal and plant proteins. And also you can get it from dairy, eggs, rice, peas, things of that nature. And I really want to flip through. Yes, so, and in regards to other sources of protein, there is a number of I thought I had one that gave the amount of protein. Yes, I do. So chicken, for example, say a regular piece of chicken breast contains 38 grams of protein, right? But there is a plant that comes from the sea called spirulina, and it contains 58 grams of protein. There is another sea vegetable called chlorella that also has 58 grams of protein. Hemp seeds have 33 grams, pumpkin seeds, 30 grams, lentils, 26 grams, peanut butter, 25 grams, almonds, 21 grams, and so on and so forth. So we know that there are other sources of protein rather than just meat. So if you can follow along and find the handout that is talking about servings of protein per serving, just know that not everything will need to be a meat in order for you to get your protein in, okay? So that's an important point. So there's protein powders, there's fruits, there's more so vegetables, sea vegetables, nuts and seeds, beans and legumes. All of these things have protein as well. Okay, and now let's go and talk a little bit about fat. Another type of nutrient that a lot of times people just assume is all bad and it's not healthy for you. Fats is also essential to the diet. It's just, again, a matter of choosing the correct type of fat that you're consuming. So we have 4 types of fat. There's trans fat, there's saturated fats, there's monounsaturated fats, and then there's polyunsaturated fats, okay? And so of these, what we know are the truest, worst, types of fats are trans fats, okay? That's the one at the bottom of the page. These are oils that have been processed with chemicals to sustain their shelf life. So usually you will find these oils in sort of prepackaged foods that like snack cakes, maybe cereals, crackers, chips, different things like that, prepackaged things. They'll contain oils or fats, and usually it's going to be what we call hydrogenated fats. Or hydrogenated oils. So if you don't remember anything about the other types of fats, that's the one that I want you to really focus on if you're talking about fats and oils. Get to know the word hydrogenated or partially hydrogenated. These are the terms you will see on labels. These are the foods that you want to avoid. I do not primarily shop at, say, organic markets. In this area, we have Moms, we have Whole Foods, we have Sprout, and then we have smaller, local organic or health food grocery stores. Doesn't matter where or where you get it from, and I don't exclusively shop at these places, but for certain things, I make it a point. So for things like crackers, that if you go into a mainstream regular grocery store, you'll be hard pressed to find well, unless it's in their health food section, but you'll be hard pressed to find a cracker that does not have hydrogenated oil in it. And that's absolutely what we, want to focus on, is ones that do not contain hydrogenated oils. So you may just go to a specialized grocery store to get your crackers. Or another example, not about fats, I'm big about not having food coloring in my foods, right? So if I want relish or pickles or something that I'm using to make a tuna salad or potato salad or whatever, right? It'll be hard to find pickled relish or pickles or what have you that will not contain yellow number 5 or yellow number 6, these artificial food colorings, right? So you may simply use certain specialized health food or organic stores for those types of foods that you can't find in a regular grocery store. So even if your budget doesn't allow for your entire shopping to be at these types of stores, choose which foods that you want, to make sure you get the best of it. And then the other things, you can do well at maybe a mainstream grocery store. So yes, hydrogenated oils. Most oils that are not what they call cold pressed or expeller pressed, or virgin, like extra virgin olive oil, or expeller pressed walnut oil or sunflower oil or sesame seed oil. If it doesn't say expeller pressed or cold pressed, which is what extra virgin is, cold pressed, then you really want to avoid those oils. Your regular vegetable oil that's made from sunbeams, soybeans, it's going to be hydrogenated. They've definitely heated that up. It's definitely, going through a process. And of course, what's happening with soybeans is they're so grossly overproduced and genetically modified, is they're not healthy, naturally growing soybeans. Okay. And so just straight vegetable oil, not going to be your best option. There's so many different oils that we don't always typically know of to cook with. Sunflower, walnut, macadamia nut. There's so many oils to cook with. But if you are frying your meat or your vegetables or whatever, the best oils for frying are going to be coconut oil, sesame oil, grapeseed oil. These are your better oils to fry in. And the way that you determine that is because these are oils that do not turn black. So if you're a cook and you fry, say you're a fish fryer or a chicken fryer or what have you, right? If you're using your typical vegetable oil, and by the time you've cooked your chicken wings or what have you, and the oil is black or dark brown, this is not a good oil to fry with. If you have ever used coconut oil, or if you do experiment with that, you'll know that it'll get this really rich, creamy color even while frying. It even bubbles up at the top. It's really a creamy, beige color, oil, even at high temperatures. And that's because these oils that I've mentioned, they don't break down at 400 degrees or higher. They maintain their molecular structure while heating it to the point of frying the food, okay? And so coconut, sesame, grapeseed, these are oils to fry in. Olive oil and all these other oils, they're good for like sauteing or low temperature foods. So if you can do without, and peanut oil, coconut oil, corn oil, these are okay as well. I think just one of the biggest problems with oils today is the vegetable oils that are made with these genetically modified soybeans, or any oil that is hydrogenated. So another other oils are listed here. They talk about where you get saturated fats from. And it's not like you're going to go out and buy these fats. They're in the foods that you're eating. So these are oils like what you find in butter and lard and meat fat and that sort of thing. Monounsaturated fats. Yeah, so, and there is a mistake here. There is a mistake. So if you do have this first line that's under monounsaturated fats, these healthy fats can increase your risk for heart disease and other health problems. Strike through that. That doesn't belong under unsaturated fats, okay? That actually goes with saturated fats. So if you're following along with, with the handout, under monounsaturated fats, that first line does not go. So I don't know who our host is today, but I think usually everyone is muted, I believe, but I don't think that the administrators are regulating that today. Is that correct? Because I'm hearing that some people are unable to, they're able to unmute themselves, and I'm hearing some background throughout. And I heard a sister's voice, not Alex. I don't know if someone else is taking over for Alex today.
Yes, it's Yvonne.
Okay, Yvonne, sis, can you mute everyone? Are you able to do that?
Yes.
Okay, I just hear that, and I can see every once in a while some of the mics are on, and I'm just hearing some background. So they may just be accidentally unmuting themselves, and I'm just hearing some background. Thank you. So monounsaturated fats and polyunsaturated fats, these are the two better fats. These are fats that usually you'll get from your avocados and your other meats like salmon and other vegetables and things like that. Nuts, seeds, they have oils in them. These are your healthier fats or your healthier oils, okay? So what we know we want to avoid is saturated fats, and what we also want to avoid is trans fats. Okay, so I think I've talked enough about fats. The main thing for practical purposes with fats is to just know what to fry your foods in and to avoid hydrogenated oils in prepackaged foods, okay? Water, I think, I'm not sure if we've talked about previously, but we know that water is an essential nutrient. It is something we have to have. I'm pretty sure I've mentioned it, but if not, we know that about 66% of our bodies contain water. We know that water is life. Water cleanses, purifies, it sustains life. You can survive without food, but you can't survive, or not forever or not indefinitely, but you can survive a longer period of time without food than you can without water. And we know that, and I think it was last week we talked about hydrating foods, right? So that can serve as sort of our introduction to water. We know that hydration is crucial. And depending on where you are, the quality or the source of water, of course, comes into question. But the purest and highest quality of water that you can get is what I suggest. And also a rule of thumb in terms of how much water to consume is half your weight in ounces. And I usually cut that off at 100 ounces. You don't necessarily have to consume a whole gallon of water, which is 128 ounces. But if you say, even if you're over 200 pounds, if you're at least getting in 100 ounces of water a day, that is going to be good. So for a person that's maybe 180 pounds or then you would do 90 ounces. If someone's 160 pounds, you would do 80 ounces of water a day. And then you want to spread that out throughout the day. I've had people who say, oh yes, as soon as I get up, I drink 50 ounces of water. Now that is not the best idea, because you're simply going to keep what the bladder is going to do is going to keep filling itself up. You'll have to go and void. You'll have to go urinate, right? A few minutes later, it's going to fill up again. You'll have to go void and urinate again, and so on and so forth. So your body's not going to be, your body is not going to be able to absorb all of the water if you try to take in too much at one time. So for most of us who are up at least 16 hours a day, what you would do is just sort of portion your water out over the course of those 16 hours, okay? You know, if you have access to choices of water, I usually prefer distilled water myself. I think distilled water is an excellent source of water. Some people think that it's void of any minerals because it's been sort of vapor distilled. However, if we have a balanced diet and we're taking in raw fruits and vegetables, we're going to get, you know, the minerals and such that we would need. But to get the purest form of water, that's sort of my choice, is distilled water. And of course, another thing that's very popular these days is alkaline water. Even before Corona, there was always a need to be more alkaline than acidic, right? And so alkaline water, usually you'll find alkaline water that's maybe 8.5 or 9.0 is also a good option for your water consumption. I just don't so much trust these purified, you know, drinking water sources. But again, depending on what part of the world you're from, if that's your best option, definitely that's better than some local waters that are not clean or purified at all. But water is essential. We have to have it, and as high quality and as pure as we can find, that's what we need to do. We talked about colloidal silver. I don't know if it was last week or the week before. That's another natural antibiotic that I will travel with to add to water, because depending on where I am, even if it's bottled water, I will add my colloidal silver into it to further purify the water. And I know a lot of you don't know about me, but I often, I've only traveled to Ghana, but I've been multiple times, and I only go to very rural areas where there's not necessarily a good water source, and it's, you know, it's outside of Accra. It's not just in a highly, you know, populated area where you have sort of certain amenities or certain, you know, availability of certain things. So I'm used to really being in really rural areas where everything is not always in the cleanest or purest state in terms of, say, water, for example. So, but of course, you know, you can't travel, you can't be in, you know, the hottest of sun and not consume water. So even finding bottled water, I still add my colloidal silver to just fight off any disease-causing microorganisms that might be in the water, but to still stay hydrated and to make sure that I'm still replenishing my body. And so whatever the situation, water is essential. And because we now know hydrating foods per our discussion last week, when water is also scarce, then you know some of the fruits that we mentioned last class, cucumbers, watermelon, things like that, that we know are hydrating to the body, then we know that we can consume those as well and really help improve our situation when water is maybe not plentiful. I was trying to refer back to it, trying to find it on my phone, but that definitely was posted in the WhatsApp. So I think you can refer back to that to see the hydrating fruits and vegetables that we talked about last week. Yeah, pineapple, cucumbers, celery, melons, pears, blueberries, grapefruit, things of that nature, okay? So we've done 4 of the essential nutrients. So now let's go to the 5th and 6th, vitamins and minerals, okay? So we know that, again, most of us eat to just satisfy ourselves. But if we are following a rule of eating to live, we know that we try to seek out foods that are highly nutritive, that have a lot of nutrients in them. So we know that we want vitamins and minerals that we can get out of the foods we eat. And we know that we need these vitamins and minerals because they are essential to our well-being. You have to have vitamins and minerals to build up different parts of the body, our different body systems, our different organs, glands, tissue, things of that nature, right? And so the handout, again, if you're following, in our handouts, there's a chart about all the different vitamins and minerals, and it talks about what each of these vitamins do and where you can find them. Okay, and that means what foods you can find them in, right? So I'll just go over a few of these, some of the ones that I think are maybe easier to consume through our foods, and some of the ones that are most crucial in order to maintain health. So vitamin A, let's talk about that one. A lot of times vitamin A, we don't think a whole lot of. Vitamin A, from animals, if you get it from an animal, it's just usually vitamin A. If it's a vegetable source, it's usually beta carotene, but it's all vitamin A, right? But vitamin A is essential because it is for growth and development, it's for the immune function, it's for reproduction. It helps with red blood cell formation. It's good for skin and bone formation and for vision, right? And so most people know about carrots and beta carotene because it's good for vision. But vitamin A does so much more, right? And all of these things we just mentioned are very important. And so what is even more important is where you can naturally find these vitamins. And let me take this opportunity to say, vitamins and minerals for some people simply mean a bottle, right, of pills that contain different vitamins and minerals in it. What I want to talk about and have you focus on is what foods naturally contain these vitamins and minerals, okay? Because what we want is to get our nutrition through our foods. So even if we're eating things that we just enjoy, right, and we're eating for pleasure, we still want to make sure that our food is serving us, that our food is giving us what we need to form healthy minds and bodies, right? And so if you're taking a vitamin, you want it to be what we call food-based. We want it to be a whole foods vitamin or mineral. So that means made from these food made from these food items that we're talking about here, right? So we want it to be not a synthetic or not a man-made vitamin or mineral. We want it to be derived from some kind of fruit or vegetable, okay? So, for example, continuing with vitamin A, you naturally find vitamin A in cantaloupe, carrots, dairy products, eggs. Let's put a little asterisk by this fortified cereal thing. I'll come back to that. Green leafy vegetables like spinach and broccoli, pumpkins, red peppers, and sweet potatoes, right? So these are natural sources. These are natural foods that contain vitamin A. Now, fortified cereals, or anytime you see something that says fortified or enriched, it's kind of tricky because that means it didn't naturally come with those minerals and those vitamins. The manufacturer kind of added or enriched or fortified those cereals, and they do that a lot with flour or grain types of foods. So breads, cereals, things like that, you'll see where it'll say fortified or enriched. They do the same thing with dairy. So if you have a better option or another option, I'll say, to get something, you're going to still do better than something that had to be enriched or had to be fortified, okay? They list B6 and B12 here. We know that there's a whole family of vitamin Bs, and they are essential. Let me talk a little bit about, well, I can't really pick one, and they didn't kind of list all of them, but you know, there's a B1 and a B3 and a B5 and all of that. So this chart here has B6, important for immune function, the nervous system. It helps metabolize proteins, carbohydrates, and fats, and it's good for red blood cell formation. Then if you skip down to B12, this converts food into energy. So a lot of times people who have low energy, they'll try to take B12. It's good for nervous system function and also, again, red blood cell formation. So B6 you'll find in chickpeas, you'll find in citrus fruit, well, not citrus fruits, you'll find it in other fruits, potatoes, salmon, tuna. B12, predominantly found in animal or seafoods, which is why for vegans or for vegetarians that don't consume any kind of flesh, B12 is one of those supplements that's hard, or one of those vitamins that's hard to get through foods, because if you're not doing dairy or eggs or meat or poultry or seafoods, you pretty much won't have B12. So in those cases, those are people who would do a supplementation, and they're vegetarian or vegan friendly supplementations for B12, for example. Vitamin C, a lot of people are familiar with vitamin C because of its disease fighting or infection fighting properties. It's an antioxidant. It helps build the collagen and connective tissue, and it helps wounds to heal. So if you have a cut or a scrape or something like that, helps heal different wounds. I don't know if y'all can hear my 5-year-old like I can. But vitamin C you can find in broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cantaloupe, citrus fruits, kiwi fruit, peppers, strawberries, tomatoes, and tomato juice. So vitamin C, very important, especially when you're talking about these days and times with corona, but also any time where cold, flu, but also allergy and hay fever season, or if you're just around people and you're susceptible to other people's germs and that sort of thing. So vitamin C is something you always kind of want to keep a high concentration of in your body. So these are foods you definitely want to make part of, your daily regimen. Vitamin D is an interesting one, and I really won't go through every one, but vitamin D is something that has become more and more deficient in people. I kind of question it because I wonder why all of a sudden everybody is deficient in vitamin D. I don't know that people's diets have changed that much. If I had to guess, it has to do with the soil and how we're growing our foods, and some of these, poorly enriched soil that our fruits and vegetables are being grown in. It's just got to be something to it. But pretty much everybody from small children to seniors are now all of a sudden vitamin D deficient. But we also know that melanin, we absorb that good natural vitamin D, the sun, much better. And we can sort of, so I don't know. In this country, it's something that's highly deficient, supposedly, but I would wonder if it is the same thing on the continent, for example. I would venture to say that it's probably not. But here you're finding everybody, they're claiming to be vitamin D deficient. But we know that we need vitamin D for blood pressure regulation, bone growth, calcium balance, hormone production, immune function, and for nervous system function. So vitamin D is very important. Usually you have to make sure you have good calcium and magnesium in your body too, because they all help each other get absorbed into the body. So usually you will need something, or you'll need to have a balanced diet that also contains rich calcium foods and magnesium rich foods as well. But you'll find vitamin D in fish, eggs, and then we have all these fortified things, right? So fortified cereals, fortified dairy products, fortified margarine. So the FDA wrote this. So let me just say, never do I recommend margarine. Okay. Fortified orange juice. I hate fortified orange juice. And fortified soy beverages. So yeah, I personally would scratch out this margarine and this soy beverages if you know, and again, I already said my little bit about fortified stuff, period. But also we know to go sit out in the sun and get healthy doses of vitamin D that way as well. Margarine is a completely made up fat, definitely falls in the category of those fats, the saturated and trans fats that we talked about, definitely not a good oil of fat to include in your diet, okay? So that's my thing about margarine. Vitamin E, we know it is an antioxidant, helps with formation of blood vessels, helps with immune function. Green leafy vegetables, nuts, seeds, peanuts, peanut butter, good quality vegetable oils. These are all good options of vitamin E. Vitamin K, definitely important. I don't want to really skip over, but you can read that. We know that we need our blood to clot, right? So a free bleeder, that's a whole nother situation where you could just bleed out. So we need vitamin K so our blood clots naturally. Biotin, definitely good for skin, hair, and nails, and formation of skin, energy, and all of that. I'm going to yeah, so give me 1 second. Okay, I'm back. So yeah, I will mention biotin. So biotin is good for energy storage, protein, carb, and fat metabolism, but also good for skin and hair health, the scalp, the skin overall, nails, hair, all of that. You'll find biotin in salmon, eggs, fruits, cauliflower, avocados, whole grains. Folic acid, definitely important for a woman that's still in her birthing years. And if you are preparing for pregnancy, that's probably when it's most needed for. But this helps prevent birth defects, helps metabolize protein, form red blood cells in the body. So you can get folate or folic acid from asparagus, avocados, beans and peas, green leafy vegetables, orange juice, that sort of thing. And so some of these other ones, riboflavin, thiamine, niacin, you can sort of read through those. They're all essential nutrients that the body needs, but I won't go all, through every one. Let's skip over to minerals. Calcium, most people know of calcium. So I will mention it, but I want to kind of mention a couple that are not as popular minerals. But calcium is important as we age. We know we lose calcium. But calcium is for blood clotting, for bone and teeth formation, for constriction and relaxation of blood vessels. It's for hormone secretion, muscle contraction, nervous system function. Has a lot of functions. A lot of people just associate it with bone. development and that sort of thing. But a lot of other blood, like I mentioned with vitamin K, blood clotting is very important. Muscle contraction, very important. Calcium you can naturally find in dairy products, green vegetables, leafy or green vegetables, spinach, kale, broccoli, turnip greens. You can also get it out of tofu. You can find it in dairy products, almond, rice, coconut, and hemp milks, canned seafood like the canned salmon or canned sardines. All of these are natural sources of calcium. The other thing I'll say about calcium, it's very popular according to the FDA. It's a concern for most Americans, for example. But what we know about calcium supplements is they're poorly and cheaply made. You'll find calcium carbonate is one of the synthetic vitamin supplements that they use, right? And it's much better to get it from one of these natural sources because your body still won't retain or absorb the calcium carbonate. If you are going to do a supplementation of calcium, I would personally use calcium citrate. But that's still a synthetic vitamin. Getting it from one of these sources is going to be best. If at some point you choose to take my herbalism class, which I don't offer on this platform, but if you email me and have interest in that, that's something I offer outside of this. Through my ministry, we specifically talk about what herbs contain all of these vitamins and minerals as well. And there are quite a few that contain calcium. Chromium is another one I want to mention. Probably a little underrated and underplayed, but very important because it helps with insulin function. It also helps metabolize protein, carbs, and fat. And it also helps because of the insulin function and how it helps to help the body regulate glucose. It can help when people have sugar cravings. So if you know you gotta have whatever candies, cakes, cookies, or what have you, you may very well be deficient in chromium, okay? And so natural sources of chromium are broccoli, fruits like apples and bananas, grape and orange juices, spices like garlic and basil, whole grains, and they mentioned turkey and meats also, but I would suggest going more so with the plant-based ones. I think another mineral that we maybe don't give enough credence to also is iron. Iron is used for energy production, growth and development, for immune function, for red blood cell formation, for reproduction, wound healing. Iron is also very important. If you really allow your iron to get low, it will impact you in so many ways. You will lose your energy. You'll feel like you're just out of shape. You'll get winded very easily. And so it definitely is a big part of that energy production piece. And so iron is crucial. Beans and peas, dark green vegetables, poultry, meats, prunes, prune juice, raisins, seafood, whole grains. All of these are good options for iron. Also, blackstrap molasses is another food that is great, high in iron. But yeah, iron can be key, and a lot of times we'll miss it if we had not previously had, I guess, any history of iron deficiency, but these are really important in terms of keeping your iron up and your energy level up. Magnesium, we know kind of works hand in hand with calcium, but even on its own, magnesium is good for blood pressure regulation, blood sugar regulation, bone formation, energy production, hormone secretion, immune function, muscle contraction, nervous system function, normal heart rhythm, and for protein formation, right? A lot of stuff. Magnesium is very important. Magnesium is naturally found in avocados, bananas, beans, and peas, dairy products, leafy green vegetables, nuts, pumpkin seeds, potatoes, raisins, wheat bran, whole grains. So magnesium is very important. Again, another thing that you really want to try to naturally get from your foods and not from supplementation. Another one that I'll mention is potassium. And most people only know bananas for potassium, but we'll list quite a few others here. But potassium is good for helping to regulate blood pressure, metabolize carbohydrates, good for fluid balance and making sure your body's not retaining excess water or fluid. Good for growth and development, heart function, muscle contraction, nervous system function, and protein formation. And you can find potassium in not only bananas, but in beet greens, juices such as carrot juice, pomegranate, prune, orange, and tomato juices. You'll find it in milk, orange and orange juices, potatoes, sweet potatoes, prunes, prune juice, spinach, tomatoes, white beans, and yogurt. So pretty easy to supplement that naturally as well. Selenium, I think, is another one that I'll mention, and then zinc, and that'll be the last one. But selenium is definitely good when you're talking about boosting your immune system. If you are planning on reproducing, men and women, you want to make sure your selenium is good. Thyroid function, antioxidant, and naturally found in eggs, meats, nuts, poultry, seafood, whole grains, and then of course those enriched pastas as we've talked about. Zinc. Zinc is excellent for growth and development, immune function, nervous system function, protein formation, reproduction, taste and smell, and for wound healing. The thing I'll say about zinc is men who are still sexually active, you lose a lot of zinc. So if you hear nothing else, zinc is something you definitely want to make sure you add. And probably one of the best or easiest ways is through the pumpkin seeds. But there are other foods as well. And of course, women and men need zinc, but zinc is one of those things that men become more deficient in than women usually. But beans and peas, beef, dairy products, nuts, poultry, seafood, whole grains, these are natural sources of zinc. And they don't have seeds, but seeds, especially pumpkin seeds, are going to be really high in zinc. Also almonds. Oh yeah, so it says nuts, but let me specify almonds and let me add seeds, pumpkin seeds to this list. Those are particularly going to be, and they're easy things to kind of snack on, to kind of add to your diet to increase your zinc. Okay. The next handout will simply kind of reiterate some of the foods that contain the different vitamins and minerals. So I won't go back over that. I highlighted some of the other sources of protein, but there's another handout about that. Protein-rich foods reminders. So we know almonds and baked beans and avocados and cashew nuts and chia seeds, kidney beans, sunflower seeds, walnuts, watercress, edamame, Brussels sprouts, bok choy, broccoli. All of these are high or rich in protein. So again, doesn't have to just be meats. And yet another handout. This one's not as legible. I think it's a little fuzzy. The quality is not that clear, but sort of just gives a little more detail, or more examples, I should say, about proteins, fats, and the different vitamins and their food sources. So this is, again, just something, for you to have, to add to, you know, your stockpile of information. We went on over the next handout that talks about the types of, the amounts of protein in different foods. And then the next one, again, if you're following along, there's one that just talks about what 100 calories looks like. If you are, for example, watching your weight and you are concerned about how much you're consuming and how many calories or how much fat, you know, there's a good way to kind of start regulating your portions and things like that. And I thought that that was important when I came across this handout, so that you'll not over consume. I tend to be an overeater. I'm not a snacker. I'm not a dessert person, but I'll take a second plate of food. And I am one that loves those carbohydrates like breads and pastas and yams and all of that. So I know that all of that is easier said than done when I mentioned it earlier, but we just have to find some balance. And for me, I try to just be sure to not overdo it with my portions, because most people do want to eat for pleasure. You know, you want to be mindful of the nutrients that's in it to make your decisions, but you're going to, even on the strictest of diets, you're going to have cheat days, or you're going to still allow yourself at some point to still consume those things that we know are not great. So the best suggestion that I've used for myself and that I would suggest is you control your portions. And so that you know that, okay, I'm going to have some of this that may not be, you know, ideal or great, but I'm going to only have a handful, or I'm going to have, you know, a certain amount or what have you. So this handout talks about some good fat options and how much of it you would consume. So for example, if you're trying to get in some good healthy fats or oils, you would do 2 tablespoons of sunflower seeds or pumpkin seeds, or 1/4 of an avocado, right? Or 30 pistachios, not a whole bag, but you know, you kind of count them out, right? Or 14 almonds, or 10 cashews, or whatever. And some people may think that's ridiculous, and who's counting out all of these nuts and seeds? When you start doing it though, and you kind of get an idea, so you know, but you got to start from, you know, square one of counting it out to then be able to eyeball it and say, okay, this is about, you know, 14 or 15 almonds. Okay, this is about 10, or this is about 30. But so that you're not over consuming and getting in too much of the fats at a time, that's something that's necessary to do. Or if you're talking about a healthy amount of carbs and you're getting it from fruits, then 1 cup of berries, right? Not 3 or 4 cups, because we love strawberries. Oh, blueberries, they're so small, and you just dump a whole, you know, bag. Portion it out, a cup full of berries. Any individual berries or mixed berries of your choosing, 1 large apple, 2 clementines, the little small little tangerine or clementine citrus fruit, 25 grapes, 1 whole banana, 2 cups of cut up watermelon, 2 kiwi fruit, 1 cup of pineapple. And these sweet fruits like pineapples and mangoes and stuff like that, it's really easy for us to overconsume those because they're sweet and so delicious, right? But you want to start figuring out what are good portions. When you're talking about veggies, you know, 3 bell peppers, and that's a lot of bell peppers. And people who are on certain strict diets will snack on red peppers because they're so low in calories and carbs, and you can eat a lot of it. I like peppers, but I haven't quite developed that taste to where I'm just snacking on peppers. 2 cups of broccoli, 7 Brussels sprouts, 2 cups of carrots, things like that. But then there are other foods that you can just do an unlimited amount of. Can't eat too much lettuce. Lettuce pretty much has no calories. And these are foods that really don't have a glycemic index anyway, so they don't really contain carbs. So ginger, spinach, cabbage, celery, zucchini, radish, tomatoes, garlic, cucumbers, mushrooms. These are things you could just eat plentifully. Okay. Good portions of proteins, about 3 ounces of turkey, 1 can of like tuna and oil, not oil, water. I meant water. 1 large egg, 1/2 cup of yogurt, 1.5 ounce of chicken, you know, things like that. A 2 ounce, I can't say a 2 ounce, 2 ounces of beef, 10 shrimp. So this is just sort of a good way to know sort of what a serving or what a good amount or portion of these different foods are. So fine, get your good fats, get your good carbs from fruits and vegetables, get your proteins, but don't overdo it in terms of the amount, okay? And I think what I will do, okay, I did add this in. Okay, great. I did add in here. Okay, see, I did good by you all, right? I did add in the herbal and food sources of vitamins and minerals. The way it differs from the chart that we just went over, that predominantly just dealt with foods like meats and dairies and fruits and vegetables. This handout that says food and herbal sources of vitamins and minerals, this mainly lists different herbs that you will find, or use to find the different vitamins and minerals in. And I won't go over it, but you'll have this for your reference. So I think before I was talking about calcium and magnesium. So for example, there are herbs that are high in calcium so that you don't have to use a synthetic calcium supplement. So there's horsetail, there's Irish moss, there's garlic, there's fennel, there's elder, there's dandelion, there's ginseng, there's golden seal, there's red raspberry, there's white oak. There are a number of herbs that are high in calcium. Same thing with magnesium. There's valerian, there's red clover, there's dandelion, there's alfalfa, there's mullein, there's nettle, red raspberry, wood bethany. So I won't, again, go over all of these, but you will now have as a reference what herbs are high in different vitamins and minerals, okay? So let me just see if there are any messages that I have not seen yet. Yeah. Yeah, so I will, if you don't have the handouts, definitely I will send them to you. I just don't want to hold up the class and send them now, but I will post them to the WhatsApp group, as well as if you sent me, yeah, no, let me not get into that again. I'd be so inclined to be like, I'm gonna email it to you. And I will, but you gotta email me first, because I'm not gonna be able to write down everyone's email. So nanaakua1@gmail.com is my email. So yes, if you want me to email you the packet, I'm happy to do that. You just have to send me an email and request it. And let me scoot back up here. All right. Yes, welcome everybody. Thank you for sending your greeting message here. And I'll post it again. So yes, if you are now on WhatsApp, I'll post it again. I'll post the packet. It's in 3 parts. And some, of course, we've already gone over, and some will be what we've discussed today. But yes, I'll repost that so you will be able to see it on, I guess, the most recent, post. Yeah, so I agree. So Godfrey was saying culturally. So in some regards, culturally, we have certain eating habits that still can be bad for us. However, I do agree with the part of eating based on your climate, eating seasonally, what is in your environment. I do agree, with all of that. But for example, here in the US, those of us who are diasporan African people, and because of our history with slavery and what our ancestors just on this side of the world were faced with in terms of what diets they were given, or what they ate, or what they grew up on. And that was passed down from generation to generation. And we got really used to eating, and we adapted to what we were allowed to eat. And we've carried some of that over. I would like us to get rid of some of those things. So some of the parts of animals that really weren't meant to be consumed, and organ meats, elimination organs, things that we just don't need to consume, even though culturally that's a part of, say, Southern cooking or down home, country cooking. These are not parts or diets or recipes that we should continue or keep up with. So it just depends. But yes, eating seasonally, eating for your climate, definitely a good idea. Okay, well, Godfrey had a lot to say. Okay, so again, and I don't really want to go back and forth. I mentioned something in terms of, say, yams or root vegetables or whatever. That's a fact that it's a high starch or high glycemic food. I do think that to avoid certain conditions that affect the pancreas should just be avoided. Anything outside of that, I'm not really, addressing or didn't really speak to specifically about in terms of what some of the global differences may be. But yes, we take what is relevant for us, you discard the rest. I'm simply here to educate about the nutrient content of foods, and I will make my suggestions based on, my years of experience and what I know about foods and nutrition and what have you. And then you kind of go from there. Yeah. Okay, somebody is saying they can't hear. I know that I'm not still muted, but yeah, I don't know. Someone's saying they can't hear. I'm not sure if that's affecting anyone else. Yeah, and not every element or not every mineral is in every food, but yes, certain foods are more, contain certain minerals or elements than others. And just from the chart, and I definitely skipped over, and I'm assuming you're referring to elements as minerals, certainly skipped over some, but even things that we've been traditionally taught that is toxic are considered nutrients. So things like iodine and sodium and copper and all of these things. And then there are even what we call micro minerals that are cadmium and other things that in certain levels or certain amounts can be toxic. But these are things that are used in our bodies to build our structure and to function and all of that. I think I got through those. But so we have a few more minutes. So again, I'm not going to go through this, but please, if you are into herbs and you use different herbs, even if it's just for herbal teas, this chart will be good for you to know which of these herbs contain different vitamins and minerals. And the last thing I'll talk about are what we call superfoods. So superfoods are foods that are so highly nutritive that they're considered superfoods, right? Healthy food is one of the very best things that you can do for your body and mind. It's simple. The foods you choose to eat every day determine on a daily basis how you will feel that day. If you put a lot of junk food in, don't be surprised if you lack energy or get sick easily. If you eat a variety of fresh, organic, and raw foods, you'll notice you feel more energetic and even more optimistic than when you ate poorly. When you eat a kaleidoscope of different whole raw foods, you're giving your body the nutrients you need to function and thrive. This is the key to feeling good, and not just daily, but on the long term. Eating healthy foods regularly, engaging in regular exercise, and finding ways to decrease stress will keep your joints fluid and mobile, your blood pressure regulated, and your weight at a healthy level. So while eating healthy can be considered by many as a no-brainer, there are certain foods bursting with loads of nutrition that the average, and it says Western eater, so I understand some of this information is not relevant for everybody all over the world, but for the average Westerner eater, a lot of people don't know, so we're going without. But going forward, make sure that this doesn't describe you, that you do become in the know and you know which foods to eat, right? So they gave sort of a rating of some of the top 10 foods that have a lot of nutrient content. And most of these, I think we've mentioned, but this sort of gives you sort of a listing. We've mentioned almonds, okay? Almonds, you get more calcium in your diet when you add almonds. It's the richest source of calcium out of all the nuts. It's high levels of vitamin E. So yes, very nutritious. It's a good source of protein. So calcium, vitamin E, protein makes almonds a superfood. Broccoli rabi. This is the leafy green vegetable. And it's sort of not the floret broccoli. It's the one that kind of has the longer stem. Kind of looks like a cross between asparagus and broccoli. Don't know that grows everywhere. But this is packed with potassium, iron, calcium, vitamins A, C, and K. They slow aging, create stronger bones, and decreases risk of hypertension, among other things. Avocados is also on the list. raw milk, wheatgrass, salmon, flax seeds, blueberries, cinnamon, and sweet potatoes. Okay. And all of these contain multiple nutrients. And so I won't kind of read through each one. And then there's a next page that gives some other, and these are more so nuts or seeds or fruits that most people kind of add to their smoothies or cereals or things like that, or maybe their salads. But this is sort of a whole nother kind of look at superfoods, especially when people are doing sort of meal replacers and doing these smoothies and things like that. So they're looking for foods that are packed with different nutrients in them. So from this list, the acai berry is added to this list. It's native to South America, has a lot of nutrients in it. Goji berries, I think this one is native to China. Same type of thing. Highly nutritive, has a lot of vitamin C in it. Cacao or cocoa powder. This one is good for blood pressure, increasing blood flow, among other things, improving circulation. And then there's seaweed. Seaweed we know is from the sea, but it is good for good fats and oils, essential fatty acids that we call it. So it's good for preventing heart attack and stroke. High in a lot of minerals like calcium, magnesium, iron, potassium, iodine, zinc, most of the ones that we talked about. And then chia seeds. Chia seeds has become very popular as well. Chia seeds, native to Mexico. And these are also packed with essential fatty acids like omega-3 and fiber and calcium. And then there is mangosteens, which is a type of fruit, not related to mangoes. It's native to Southeast Asia. So not always easy to find all over the world, but highly nutritive, most known for combating cancer and inflammation. And then there is maca powder, and this grows in the Andes Mountains. This boosts energy, endurance, and libido. So that's a good one to have if you're in need of those things. And so those are just two lists of what we call superfoods. So again, if it's something that you can find and add to your diet, even if it's in small quantities and it's just say in one smoothie a day or in one juice meal a day, or you sprinkle some of the chia seeds or something on your hot cereal or something like that. That's typically how those things are used. So the last thing that I'll discuss, I know I said the superfoods was the last thing, right? But we have a few more minutes, but people are dropping off here like flies, huh? But for you that are still here, I'm glad to see you. So I don't want to short you either, but I also don't want to talk you to death. But what I wanted to just be sure, because technically this is the 5th week of the class, and we've kind of followed through the syllabus. What I wanted to be sure is that you all took the time. So if you do have already the packet, I hope that you will look at this. If you haven't gotten it yet, know that you will get it. But I wanted to just point out some of the self-assessments, right, that are listed, because they can be very, very helpful in terms of determining your condition. You know, how healthy are you, right? So there's one, the first one I have here is just sort of a diet check questionnaire, where it simply gives you an idea of how well you're doing in terms of what you're eating, right? So it asks about whether you eat processed foods, whether you eat food with a lot of salt in it, or fried foods, or a lot of chocolate or sweets and stuff like that, right? And so there is then a check sheet behind that that will kind of tell you what things you need to do to improve your health, right? Then the next one kind of spans over quite a few pages, because there's a symptom analysis that will give indication of whether you are deficient in certain vitamins and minerals. And then they have a lifestyle analysis where it gives you an idea of what your energy level is like, what your stress level is like, what your exercise, immune system, pollution, cardiovascular system, all of that gives you sort of a check or idea of all of those things. Now, grading that one is a little, the little chart for grading that one is a little detailed, a little intricate, but even if just going through the questions, based on the questions, you'll know, or make you think enough to be like, oh, okay, maybe I'll pay attention to this. You know, for example, is your blood pressure above 140/90? So even if none of these other things exist, or even if they do, this still gives you an idea where you already know, okay, I might need to make some changes for my cardiovascular health. You know, it's asking if you smoke, if you're over 14 pounds overweight, you know, sort of things like that. So even if you end up not using the kind of scoring page here, you'll still get an idea of your condition in each of those sections based on the questions. There's some of the other checklists. There's a parasite checklist. So that'll help you to know whether it's likely that you maybe need to do a parasite cleanse or not. And what some typical parasites are and what symptoms they cause. So all of that's listed here. Then there's a checklist about Candida. A lot of times people get really interested in parasites and, you know, so worried about whether they have parasites. Some people overlook Candida, which is excess yeast. And so most of us who overconsume carbohydrates, we're more likely to have Candida than parasites, for example. Now, both can be problematic, of course, but I'm just saying don't underplay the importance of clearing out any Candida or yeast in the body, because that can be just as harmful as parasites. Then there's a mercury toxic metal questionnaire. Gives you an indication of whether you may have toxic metals in your system that you need to address. There's a stress symptom checklist. And then there's a flower remedy. And if you remember early on, if you've been with us since this Pan-African Healthcare course first started, I think it was the second class, we started talking about emotional health and the flower remedies. And I think I pointed to this then, but if I didn't, there is that flower remedy self-questionnaire or self-assessment questionnaire where it's like 114 questions, 116 questions that just kind of help you evaluate your emotional well-being or your emotional state, right? And there's a checklist in the back as to which flower remedies would help balance your emotions, okay? And so then there is a body type checklist. So again, those of us who are maybe weight conscious or worried about how to lose some excess weight, it helps you determine your body type. I think I put the male one and the female one in here, I think, hopefully. If not, forgive me. Yeah, I think so. But that just kind of helps you determine what your body type is and what foods and exercises and things like that would best suit you in terms of losing weight or that sort of thing. And then the last one, I think, is a hormone check, and this one is just for women, where it just kind of helps you to understand at what phase you are in your life, whether you're estrogen dominant, whether there's too much progesterone, what symptoms their different conditions might cause, you know, whether there's excess androgens, cortisol, estrogen, progesterone. So it kind of helps you to know how to sort of balance out the hormones, okay? So let me check the messages again. Yeah, so there is no synopsis for the other classes. However, it repeats. I'm not sure if we're taking a break or if we'll just continue on and start over. I will, I guess, get direction on that. But if you did miss and say today is your first day, we will start over and the course sort of repeats. So you'll catch whatever information you missed from classes 1 through 4, for example, okay? Okay, wonderful. Awesome. So yeah, okay, these are all private messages. So yeah, I appreciate the love. I appreciate the support. I'm glad you're getting information that you need. If you don't have any other questions though, that does sort of round out this segment or this session of the Pan-African Healthcare course. It is a 5-part course. If you have missed, if you did miss something, you can just sort of keep tuning in each week and catch whichever classes you forgot. So yeah, and definitely not all crops grow everywhere or thrive everywhere. Absolutely, that's a good question. So yes, and some of the things that I mentioned, for example, are from or native to a particular area. And usually you still have to end up getting those kind of exported or imported, I should say, from those places because your area may not produce it or it is only grown in a certain part of the world. And that happens a lot here where we might be used to getting certain things, but know that we don't grow them locally in whatever season. And if you want it, you do have to then order and get certain fruits or vegetables or items from some other place. So yeah, definitely not everything grows or thrives in every region. Certain things are native to certain places for a reason. And we just sort of end up coming upon, you know, what part of the world may use whatever item. But if it's of use to us and we can access it, it's good to sort of know about it. And if you're able to get it, you know, you can benefit from it. There are some things that are very hard to get that we may not, you know, be able to get where we are. Okay, great. All right, so I will post again on the WhatsApp platform, the course material. And if you email me and you need the packet and don't have WhatsApp or not enrolled yet in the WhatsApp, I will gladly forward that to you. But if there are no other questions, I will bid you good health and peace. And you all have a wonderful rest of the weekend.
All right. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.